I will call this April 24th Board of Adjustment meeting to order. Brandy, would you please do a roll call?
Yes, Dolly.
Here.
Elby.
Here.
Spire.
Here.
Culhane.
Here.
Kays.
Here.
And Kakachek, Dolly, Oletsky, Dargis Johnson, and Tate are absent. We do have a quorum with 5. However, with the variance request that is on the agenda, it has to be a unanimous 5 for the affirmative for the vote to pass. If that, I'll give the applicant an idea of what that. So you could, basically, if we had a full board, which would be 7, then there could be 2 that said no. But when they're absent, or we only have 5 for a quorum, then then that just limits it. So if you want, you can postpone it, or if you just want to go for it, we can do that.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Kays, second by
Spire.
Spire. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the April 10th minutes.
Making a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion by Spire,
Second.
second by Kays. Anything to add or amend to the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Regular agenda, 5A, variance application. Brandy, would you take it away?
Yes.
Are they going to continue today?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Liam. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. I hate when we only have a quorum. But this today is a variance request for the property at 2435 Lucas Circle Northwest. The request is coming from an application made for a swimming pool at this residence, which is also zoned R1, single-family residential, to install an in-ground permanent swimming pool. And with that building permit application is where we check for the requirements that are under Chapter 217907. And that is where it was brought to light that there is a 4-foot wrought iron fence installed. It did not have a building permit. It was installed in 2022. And since that was made, since the applicants were made aware of that, they have submitted for a fence permit. But we are just holding that until this variance action is taken, just for wherever, or whatever the direction is from the board. So a few moving parts with this one, and my presentation might just get a little lengthy because I have some proposals as well. With our ordinance currently, and we actually just recently amended the swimming pool section from Title 11, which is the safety ordinance, to Title 21 for the zoning, because we felt like it was more applicable that you're reviewing these things at a building permit issue, at the time of building permit review and issuance. So today, what this pool or the property is not meeting is our ordinance requires a 6-foot fence, and the specific language is right here, 217907, that all outdoor swimming pools for which a permit is required shall be completely enclosed by a fence. All fence openings or points of entry into the pool area enclosure shall be equipped with gates. The gate shall be 6 feet in height above the grade level and should be constructed of a minimum number 9 gauge woven wire mesh corrosion resistant material or non-climbable wooden fence. And then all gates shall be equipped with self-closing and self-latching devices placed on the top of the gate. Fence posts shall be decay or corrosion resistant and shall be set in concrete bases. So the other thing is that there is a international pool and spa code that is adopted underneath the International Residential Code, or the IRC. In our ordinance, we have not adopted that portion. So there are different requirements that the code requires. I'm not sure why the decision to not adopt them was made. That was since 2005, we've had a separate swimming pool ordinance. Obviously, we don't get a lot of swimming pool requests, and so even when we amended the ordinance recently, these details, we didn't really, like, we didn't look at comparing between the codes. So now with this request, we have looked into what the building code requires and then what our ordinance requires. And building code allows for a 4-foot fence that does not allow for a 4-inch sphere to penetrate or be able to fit through. And then, so yeah, the 48 inches, 4 feet, or the and with the 4-foot vertical membrane distance. And then, but, sorry, I need to actually start where you do not need a barrier at all if you have a pool cover that is automatic and locking. If you don't have that, then you have other requirements that you have to install, like the barrier or the fence, and then an alarm system, the self-latching, self-closing. And so looking at these things, and obviously the main reason for this is to avoid accidental drowning of children. And so when you do think about that aspect, 4 foot is obviously going to be a barrier to keep a child out. And a 6 foot, I mean, an adult probably could scale that. But the issue and the reason for the variance here is because the fence that's installed currently is 4 feet, wrought iron. It does meet that 4-inch requirement for the vertical distance or the vertical spacing. And then the applicants also do plan to install a pool cover, an automatic locking pool cover that meets the required standards. And so we have the variance for the height and then the material, because our ordinance also only allows for the basically chain link, the 9-inch woven wire mesh, or a wooden fence. And then obviously with this one, it is the wrought iron and it's installed. So what we recommended as far as staff is to, if this is approved, we would recommend amending Chapter 2179 for consistent administration if the board feels like the proposed amendments are applicable, because so what I drafted here is that if we put all outdoor swimming pools for which a permit are required to have a powered safety cover that complies with ASTM F1346 and shall be completely enclosed by a fence and access gates in accordance with Chapter 1261 in this ordinance and the additional requirements as described. The fence and gate shall be not less than 48 inches or 4 foot above grade. Openings in the fence shall not allow passage of a 4-inch diameter sphere. All gates shall be equipped with self-closing and self-latching devices placed not less than 3 inches below the top of the gate and shall be equipped to accommodate a locking device. As opposed to what our ordinance is today, that we don't require a covered pool, an automatic powered safety pool cover. And we just require the 6-foot fence.
So if we, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
so if I don't have the pool cover, and I had a 6-foot fence, that would be okay then too?
So actually, I see that my version, after I talked with Reed, the building official, we also thought about presenting the option of, yes, if you don't have an automatic pool cover, then that you would have to have a 6-foot fence. If we feel like that,
I'm guessing that was the intent when the 6-foot was originally brought into being years and years ago, was that there wasn't a really big market on pool covers back 20 years ago as it is today. And so I'm just guessing that probably was more of an industry standard at 6-foot, a 6-foot privacy fence, security fence.
right,
And that's probably why the rule is written the way that it is.
yeah. Yeah, no, and I think like really, I was surprised to learn that in code, if you have an automatic powered safety cover that meets the standards, then you don't have a requirement for any barriers. So we still would be at a higher standard by still requiring a barrier.
I think that happens to then help avoid some sort of invitational nuisance that comes with that, right, Mr. Chairman?
Exactly, yeah. Don't get me wrong, I like pools and I enjoy them, but there's plenty of cases, neighbor kids, whatever.
That was it for my presentation, though, so
Brandy.
I'll stand by for questions.
I don't mean to be critical, but why aren't we looking at an ordinance amendment instead of a variance today? I mean, why aren't we doing plan commission and why aren't we just amending the ordinance?
Well, for one, there was the variance application, and so in reviewing it, that's where staff landed.
Okay. I mean, I tend to agree with everything as presented, and I agree with certainly the arguments of applicants, but from a procedural standpoint, it seems like, why don't we just change the rule?
Yeah, and we definitely can. I don't know, and when you open the public hearing, if you want to ask the applicant
yeah.
that.
Any other questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Hearing none, or you want to go, Bill?
I was just going to, for staff here, in my research, I believe consistency across the ordinance with childcare providers in the house. I think there's specified requirements for the fencing that would maybe supersede what we're doing here today. And I want to make sure that would be captured as well.
Yeah.
For when you guys want to get.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone to speak, applicant and/or anyone to speak on behalf of?
Ordinance amendment process, but.
Hi, my name is Lauren Olerud. I'm the applicant, and so thanks for having us today. When we've been digging into this too, we've looked at some other communities, and they all have that 4-foot ordinance. Sioux Falls to Harrisburg T, I've included all of those. And then if you don't know about the safety covers, so what the requirement is for the ASTM is that you have to hold at least 485 pounds. So it should be, 2 adults and a couple kids out there, and it should not collapse, which in 2005, when it was first made, I'm sure that was probably not a technology that was available. And so I just feel like maybe it just needs to be updated to have that new technology included in the ordinance.
Chair, question for the applicant. The pool cover, is that going to be done in conjunction with installing the pool?
Yep, the same guys that are installing the pool install the cover at the same time.
So with the pool cover, the fence requirement is not needed. Is that correct, staff?
At this time, how ordinance is written, that's where the variance would allow for the lesser fence standard, because the fence that's installed today is 4 feet and ordinance requires 6.
I thought it was either or fence or cover. Just so,
IBC, right?
Yeah, that's the proposed ordinance amendment that would come as a condition of the approval
okay.
at a later date.
So, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
What is your time frame with the pool installation? I mean, I'm guessing we want it done by the 4th of July.
Well, actually, I was hoping we could use it by the 4th of July. The pool delivery is set for like the beginning of May. And then it's just going to fall into place whenever the rest of the construction gets done. They have some flat work that they have to get completed before they can dig in the pool, but.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Randy, if we were to say start tomorrow, what is the quickest turnaround to have an ordinance amendment in place?
So it would be the first meeting it would be the second meeting in May for Planning Commission with just notice requirements. And then 2 hearings at council, so that would put it to the end of June for the ordinance to be
In effect.
amended.
Procedurally, I'm somewhat where you're at. And I feel bad for the applicant from the perspective that we're saying we're going to give you a variance, and then the onus is on us as the community to change the policy to make you consistent. I still struggle to this day when we have absolutes in the ordinance that say shall, and we deviate, because I still think a variance is something that's specific to the property, something unique that's in nature to the property, to not meeting a specific setback. I'm struggling with. I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, if you're going to have a pool cover, I don't think the need for the fence is there. It's just, you're being hamstrung by our rules. And I'm just not exactly sure putting the cart before the horse optically is the best thing to be doing.
I would prefer to change the ordinance and I don't have any disagreement with what's being
Right.
requested. It's just, yeah, we'd be legislating by variance at that point, which is not what we're supposed to do.
Well, I guess for staff, if we don't get the variance, would that hold up the permitting and then allow them to go forward with the building?
Yes.
So that would set off the timeline for the applicant?
Okay.
Yeah.
But if a variance were granted, but then we brought the statute, or the ordinance in conformity with the variance, there wouldn't be anything running with the land, there's no,
Well, the variance, if you change the ordinance, the variance would expire because it wouldn't be moot at that point. However, if we're looking at a variance, in my opinion, the only way that we could probably grant the variance is by conjecturing some sort of saying that we don't think the variance is necessary because they're gonna put a pool cover on. And that's just us using our discretion, which gets us in trouble if anybody ever challenged us on something like that.
Especially when you say it out loud.
Wow.
you're not supposed to say that part, Todd.
I know, but I think in this situation, it's a no harm, no foul in many ways. It's just, the clean way would be to just change the ordinance. I'm sorry, you're not slimming by the 4th of July. It might be a week before, a month before Labor Day. That would be the cleanest way to do it. But if, we get to the point of somebody making a motion to approve and then having a discussion, we can see where it's at.
Well, I apologize. I think the public hearing is still open. Any questions for the applicant? Additional questions? I'm sorry, I kind of drug us off a course there. Anybody else to speak on behalf of or against the variance?
Online, is everybody online?
Does your husband want to add anything, or whoever else is online? Anybody else online? Star 60,
No, just star 6.
star 6, and you
You're
can-
thinking back, like, back when you were prank calling.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, 67 or 60, or 69.
Or 69.
Anybody online, star 6 will unmute you, and you are free to speak. Somebody unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Ryan Ulrich, applicant. So why can't you support a variance if you're looking to change it already? And just because you guys are outdated, that doesn't make sense why we need to wait for construction.
It'd be like saying to your daughter, I don't mind you staying out till midnight, even though the rule in the house is 11. But when we change the rule to midnight when you turn 16, you can, but I'm going to let you go out to midnight when you're 15. I mean, the rule is the rule. I mean, that's the issue. And for us to variance a absolute rule is a very difficult thing to do.
Yes, the standard, Mr. Olerud, for variance is a hardship, basically, and no real reasonable alternative to that. And that doesn't necessarily exist in this particular instance. It doesn't really meet the qualifications for it. But also, I don't like absurd results either.
Right.
Because we end up with an absurd result. So a variance isn't really the proper tool in order to fix this, is the short answer. It should be done through the ordinance process, but that takes us out 6-8 weeks.
If I can add to, I mean, when you look at it as far as your conditioning, the hardship would be that there's a 4-foot fence. And now that they want to install a pool, it does not qualify with what the swimming pool ordinance is. So your condition to the variance could be that a pool cover is required.
Question for
And
staff.
unrelated,
Go ahead.
Just process-wise here, is the variance requirement kick in when the project is completed, or is it required for breaking ground? I mean, is a 6 fence required?
to break ground,
To
so
break
to
ground is
issue the
required.
permit.
Issue is a permit, okay. So you can't move forward unless you have either ordinance amended or variance
Yep.
in force, and, okay.
Anybody else to speak on behalf of or against this?
So going back to your code, it was hard to hear. Is the code a 6-foot fence, or was there a pool cover even considered that
No.
you don't need a 6-foot fence?
No, there is nothing in ordinance with that today.
There's a 6-foot requirement, no cover requirement currently. And again,
So
Mr.
this-
Mr.
is
Olerud, we
this-
don't, this board doesn't make these rules. We can suggest rules to the city council. We are not the city council. So, and I don't
Yeah.
think any of
No,
us
I'm-
have, so we are literally just tasked with following what's given to us.
So is this ordinance, I'm just asking a question, is this ordinance for in-ground pools only or above-ground pools as well?
Permanent pools. So if a pool, it can be in-ground or above. If it's permanent, which is out for more than 6 months out of the year.
Okay.
Do you have other questions, Mr. Olerud?
What if we submit a new plan to put an additional 2-foot fence on it? Can we start?
Yes.
Yeah, my understanding is you would qualify for as the ordinance is currently written, and that wouldn't, there would be no issue at that point.
There would still be an issue with the material of fence, even if they added to what's
Oh,
existing.
yes, because it's
They could put a mesh barrier.
But a temporary contractor fence while the project's in progress, right?
well, and again, we're getting,
I don't
we
want
end
to
up
get
with.
into the weeds, but I
yeah.
think maybe what, Mr. Chair, if I was to say, withdraw your application, come in with an application for a 6-foot fence and a pool. The 6-foot fence doesn't have to be constructed at the same time that you're constructing the pool. It just has to be done before the pool is operational. And by then, there would maybe be an ordinance in place that you decide that before we put a
Yes.
drop of water in the pool, the 4-foot fence would suffice.
And
Okay.
I like,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, you go ahead, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
No, that's what I was just asking because according to the building, I mean, the 6-foot fence doesn't need to be done until project is completed.
That's right. And the only risk with going that route, I do like that suggestion, but this is just the this is the Board of Adjustment right now, but they would be acting on this as the Planning Commission. And then it still has to go to council for ultimate approval. So you run that risk. So, I mean, the real risk is that the ordinance doesn't get amended. You can still construct the pool, but then you have to have a 6-foot fence. And the other
Yep, I
thing with
understand.
the 6-foot fence, though, it wouldn't have to be the perimeter of the lot like it is today. So there could be workarounds if that did not happen, but that is the only risk that there would be because there's no guarantee that the ordinance would be amended.
That's the problem with issuing the variance subject to an ordinance amendment.
That's
because-
why I don't like that, is because if the city council doesn't back us up for some reason, then we've issued a variance we just said we're not following the rule.
I think the additional safety component, though, is that
Yes.
the condition of the pool cover.
Sure, I understand that, and this is all new to me. I wasn't familiar with and this has been very intriguing in terms of the capabilities of these pool covers. I didn't realize that. I would still like to see a fence in ordinance, a 4-foot fence in ordinance or something like that, having seen these cases before from a personal standpoint. But we can address that at some other time. Public hearing, I think, is still open. Let me close the public hearing, or inquire if there's any additional. Does anybody have any questions for applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Olerud? Is anybody else to speak here on behalf of or against the project, or the variance, excuse me? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. And
This is where it gets complicated. For a motion to go forward, the motion would be, they're asking to approve the 6-foot variance to a 4-foot variance.
correct.
And the building material. If we, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. Yeah, well, I'll vote against it, that's my problem, and then I'm trying to find a work. I'm gonna go with motion to approve as requested, and then we'll see if we can come up with anything in discussion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Kays, second by Spear. Further discussion regarding the variance.
as written today, the ordinance, I don't think this would be supportable, given that we would be set a precedent if the ordinance stays as it is. And it would mean that everyone that came forward would have to be treated pretty much equally, or we'd have to take that in consideration. So as it is written today, I don't think it's, the variance is supportable.
That's where I'm at, but I think once we finish, if we do vote and it fails, I think we will give you a path forward. And I think we can talk our way through that after the vote.
Well, and that's what staff, would facilitate that.
And also, there is, so there's no real, harm or, being put out on the applicant. There is a pathway to go forward with a fence permit to allow you to stay on your timeline. So, given that, I mean, we can work in combination, with the ordinance review as well.
And I think even though we're not wearing our PC hat, I think at least the five of us are probably in general agreement of what Brandy is proposing as an ordinance amendment. If we can facilitate that moving forward, it would still dovetail, and you do assume some risk. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with the suggested changes to the ordinance in terms of a policy standpoint. It's just we're not wearing that hat today. We're wearing the what are the rules hat today.
Yeah, I'm fully aligned with you guys. I think sequentially, I'd like to see this come before the plan commission and agree on the general proposal, though.
I mean, so to the extent we can direct you as staff, Brandy, I mean, bring it forward in front of us next scheduled meeting, and I assume we'll approve the suggested changes or something similar.
Yeah, no, and I don't know if we'll be able to do the next meeting because of notice. I'll see what I can do with just the timing, because you have to have the 10-day notice in advance. My other, oh gosh, now I lost my train of thought. What it was helpful to see looking at the code is the consistency, that the 48 inches or 4 feet is not because it's unique to this scenario, but it's an international code. So, and then I do like that we are still going to be a higher standard than the building code by requiring the 4-foot fence and the pool cover, or the 6-foot fence and no pool cover. Some options.
Thank you. Okay, further question or any other discussion regarding the variance? Remind me, Roberts, my parliamentarian, can we do a voice vote, or it's roll call on this one?
All Board of Adjustment
All right, roll call,
actions, so-
Brandy.
All right. Kays,
Yes, no, I'm sorry. Yes, no, I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Cohane,
No.
Spire,
No.
Elby,
No.
Dolly.
No.
The request fails. Moving on to the next thing, open public comment. Is there anything here, anybody here that has anything they want to talk about that wasn't on the agenda, other than what we've already discussed? Hearing none, new business.
Nope,
Hearing none, old business.
nope.
I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Kay, second by Spire. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.